Last week was a rough week. I had some stuff going on outside of photography, and because of that, I wasn't feeling very inspired. And I took my normal pictures, and I kind of thought they all were bad. I didn't really like any of them. But when I looked through the pictures a few days later, a couple days ago, I realized that I learned something that I needed to pay attention to, or I learned something that I needed to learn after spending that week kind of decompressing from those pictures. So this is 3 lessons that I learned after taking a bunch of pictures that I thought I hated. The first lesson that I want to talk about is inspiration being overrated. I think that I was feeling kind of outside myself, and I was looking for something that would inspire me, whether it's a pop of something or some cool shadows or someone wearing something that just stood out, and there was just nothing there was grabbing me. And in the process of taking those pictures, just whatever I saw kind of was slightly catching my eye but not grabbing me. Looking back, I do see that there are some pictures there that were fun and that had some potential. I also learned that with regards to inspiration, it's creativity is not always a lightning strike. It's not always I see that and I want to take pictures of it, and then it's going to inflate my creative juices enough to be able to carry me throughout the day creatively and taking pictures. Sometimes it sneaks up on you and you just take some pictures of some things, and then you go back and you look at it and you think they suck, and then you go back and you look at it a couple days later and you're like, okay, that wasn't so bad. And you are actually impressed isn't the word I want to say, but you're actually relieved that some of the pictures you took were solid and that it was a teachable lesson. I also learned that, I knew this a lot already, but I kind of felt it a lot this week, was bring your camera everywhere you go. So I try to take my camera with me everywhere I go, whenever I go. If I'm walking from the subway to work, my camera's always around my neck. I like to take pictures. I like to, you know all this already, I don't need to explain it again, but because I was feeling so down and in the dumps, and I didn't like any of the pictures I was taking, I didn't want to take my camera out a lot of days. And I forced myself to, because I knew that doing the exercise will eventually net results. And while during I didn't feel like I was getting anything that was worthy of any results, post facto looking at it, I think that I did get some stuff that I was able to look at and be like, okay, there's some potential there for seeing things that I wanted to at least capture, that I could see, okay, this is what I was going for, versus just looking at it after the fact initially, where I was just like, what is this garbage? And I think that some of that had to do with every day, the decision to shoot every day and not feeling it the day before. I swapped lenses like 4 times this week, and I cycled through them so frequently that I couldn't really get into a rhythm or a groove. And I think that also hurt my ability to kind of like hone in. But because I was feeling so restless, I couldn't feel comfortable in any of the lenses that I was using. Whereas normally I would make a decision in the beginning of the week, I want to shoot with this lens, I want to try to capture this type of emotion or this type of feeling, and I will stick with it for the entire week. And this week, I didn't feel like me and me, and so I couldn't just settle on a lens. Every time I would settle on one and I would take some pictures, and then I would look back at it, it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like I was capturing the moment properly, and that stung. So I would switch lenses and then because I was switching lenses constantly, there was like no cohesion in my brain for photography, and that I think was ultimately a detriment. Looking back, I'm happy with some of the pictures, but it definitely was a struggle. Lesson 2 kind of piggybacks off of that, which is never judge a photo on the same day. I'm absolutely guilty of this all the time. I take a bunch of pictures and I will cull them when I initially take the pictures, like afterwards on that same day. And I did that, and I was left with like 10 or 15 pictures from the whole week. And while I was looking at them after the fact, I was just utterly disappointed. And so I went back through my culls folder, and I ended up seeing a bunch of pictures that I liked. And so I trying to make a rule for myself this week that whatever I cull, I'm not going to delete. I'm going to keep it there, and then at the end of the week, I'm going to go through it again and see if there's anything there that maybe didn't exactly feel right at the time, but looking back, I think that there could be potential there. So I'm curious to see how many pictures I get that I thought were garbage and then turned out to be something somewhat usable. So I'm curious to see what that's like and if there is a noticeable difference. Also, I feel like this is something that a lot of people say, which is distance gives you subjectivity. So again, going back to what I was saying before, that I wanted to give myself some space to really breathe about it and see the pictures from afar. Once I was really separated and I didn't feel that disappointment after taking those pictures at the time, I think that I was able, like I was saying, I was able to really hone in, see what was what, because I was out of the moment. I wasn't looking at the pictures right after I took them and feeling like, oh man, this is what I missed, this is what could have been, there was nothing good there. Instead, when I looked back afterwards, there was a moment of, oh boy, something might be there. A final point on that is, just because you hate something today doesn't mean that it's not going to become a favorite shot down the road. And so I'm not one for keeping every single picture you always take, but I am suggesting giving yourself a little objectivity, taking a step back, looking at them maybe a week or two later, and then letting cooler heads prevail, figure out what you kind of want to do. And I think that gives you a lot of freedom to be excited in the moment, because I definitely think that there's a grand feeling when you take a picture and you look at it after and you're like, wow, that was epic, that was everything I wanted to be, I captured it exactly how I wanted to, and it just went the way that it went. And in reality, that's not really what happens a lot. What happens a lot is you'll do that, you'll take the picture, you'll capture what you thought you wanted to capture, and then you'll be like, well, it's okay, it's not great, I'm happy with it, but I'm not stellared? I'm not stellared. But you feel positive about the experience. This was, I was going back and I was not feeling positive. The point is, afterwards, in your objective, you might feel more positive about it. And I think that is a handy thing to keep in your back pocket, to remind yourself that while I took all these pictures that I didn't like, maybe I will like them in a week from now. And that is a cool hook to hang your hat on. Another thing that is exceptionally difficult for me to do is lesson number 3, which is lowering my expectations. I think that with Instagram and YouTube and all the social media sharing, magazines and books that you see photography stuff in, you see all the highlights and you see all the good stuff. You often don't see the bad exposures or the hurt feelings after a bad picture or bad shooting experience. You don't see any of that stuff. You just see the good frames that were edited and pushed out. And I think that we set our expectations really high, and we have high expectations for ourselves. When we go out, we want to take incredible shots that we look back on and say, yes, that's exactly what I was trying to capture. But if I don't do that, and then I instead look at it from the perspective of, okay, I'm just going to go capture some things and see what happens, I will be able to then relax, be in the moment, see kind of what's going on around me, and not rely as much on that like need to have a good picture. Because if I don't care as much, then there's less pressure on me. And that sounds fairly obvious, and as I'm saying it right now, it's like, well, duh. But I think, and for a lot of advice that I would give, like, say, a beginning photographer, that's a lot of advice that I would give, and I would be able to tell them that and articulate that instantly. But it's hard to remind yourself that when you're in the midst of shooting, especially once you've been shooting for a long time and you feel like, for instance, me with my 40, I've been shooting with that lens for a while and I feel very comfortable with it, that when I go and I shoot, I expect to see what I see, and I hope to have some good images, but I need to set my expectations lower so that way I don't put as much pressure on it. This is not a career, this is not a job, this is all just for fun, and if I put too much pressure on myself, then it stops being fun. And at the end of the day, that's what it's really all about, is having fun. And I think that we often take ourselves a little too seriously. I'm definitely speaking for myself, and I don't want to put that label on you, but I think you are putting that label on yourself. Yeah, so if you think that you put that label on yourself when you're going out and shooting and you're taking yourself way too seriously and you find yourself giving yourself reasons to struggle when really there's no reason to, let me know. Let me know what problems you encounter on a daily, weekly basis with your photography. Give me some ideas for how I might be able to help myself further get more comfortable on a daily basis. And I'm curious to see what other people think and what they are doing. That was 3 tips that I learned this week after taking a bunch of pictures that I didn't like. And like and subscribe and hit the buttons. And I guess let me know if there's something else you want to see. And if you also made it all the way this far and you were able to figure out what this week's video was supposed to be about, then you get 1,000,000 Morty bucks. I don't know what Morty bucks are yet, but you would get 1,000,000 of them. So if you know, you know. And even if you don't know, you do know. Morty bucks.